An assassin's highest skill is making a murder look like an accident. The South American drug lord was about to die in one. He was swimming in his private pool, when he suddenly spotted a watch at the bottom. He immediately dived down to get it. Just as he was about to reach it, a shadow suddenly appeared, and wrapped around his neck. The drug lord struggled desperately, trying to swim back to the surface, but he soon drowned from lack of oxygen. The bodyguards upstairs noticed something strange, but seconds later, the drug lord started swimming again. The guards thought everything was normal, and turned away, but it was not the drug lord moving. It was the assassin dragging his body underwater. When they reached the edge of the pool, the assassin quickly disappeared into the pump room next door, and started changing clothes. Soon after, a servant discovered the drug lord's body. The bodyguards immediately pulled him out, and tried to save him. The entire mansion fell into chaos. At that moment, the assassin had already changed into a servant's uniform. He escaped through the kitchen back door during the confusion. After leaving the mansion, he removed the servant's jacket, and changed back into his own clothes. Then he rushed toward a bridge 1 mile away. When he reached the middle of the bridge, he checked the time again. When the boat arrived below the bridge, the assassin jumped straight into the water. He grabbed onto the boat, and escaped from the drug lord's territory. That night, he returned home, and destroyed all the files related to the mission. The next morning, he turned on his computer. The news reported that the drug lord had drowned in a swimming accident. The mission was a success once again. The man's name was Arthur Bishop. He was a top assassin in a secret organization. His job was making murders look like accidents. People called him the mechanic. After completing the mission, Arthur went to collect his payment from Harry McKenna. Harry was the second in command of the organization, and Arthur's mentor. They had worked together for many years, and always had perfect teamwork. Harry handled information and planning. Arthur handled the execution. But during this meeting, Harry suddenly revealed that he wanted to retire. After saying goodbye to Harry, Arthur received a new assignment. But when he opened the target information, he froze. The new target was Harry McKenna. Arthur immediately went to meet Dean, and confirmed the situation. Dean told him, Harry had betrayed the organization. 6 months earlier, the organization received its biggest contract ever. They spent half a year preparing, and sent 5 top assassins to South Africa. But right after they arrived at the airport, all 5 were killed. Someone had leaked the operation details. The entire plan was only known by Dean and Harry, and 2 weeks earlier, $20 million suddenly appeared in Harry's overseas account. So the organization believed Harry was the traitor. Dean ordered Arthur to eliminate Harry within 2 days. Otherwise, someone else would be sent to do it. Arthur looked through the investigation report, and remembered Harry's sudden decision to retire. In the end, he picked up the phone, and called Harry. Arthur told Harry to leave immediately. Harry quickly packed his important belongings, and followed Arthur's escape plan. He first cut the power on his floor, avoiding the security cameras. Before the backup power came on, he took the elevator to the basement. Then he moved through a long connecting passage, and entered the next building. Finally, he reached the underground parking garage. But there, Harry discovered the escape car had been made to look like it was stolen. At that moment, Arthur walked out from the darkness. Harry immediately understood everything. He took out his gun, and fired several shots at the car, making the scene look more realistic. Then he handed Arthur the gun he had carried for over 30 years. Arthur raised his weapon, and ended Harry's life. At Harry's funeral, Arthur met Harry's son, Steve McKenna. Steve looked calm on the outside, but after returning to his father's house, he saw all the things Harry left behind, and started drinking alone. The next night, Steve drove Harry's Cadillac to the parking lot near the scene. Soon, a group of robbers noticed him. They thought they found an easy target, and tried to steal the car. But Steve suddenly fought back, and caught them off guard. Just as Steve was about to continue, Arthur suddenly appeared, and stopped him. Then Arthur took Steve away from the scene. The next day, Steve found Arthur. He said he wanted to become a professional assassin, and asked Arthur to train him. Arthur refused at first, but after returning home, he looked at Harry's photo, and eventually changed his mind. Arthur asked Steve to meet him at an animal shelter. He told Steve to adopt a puppy. Then he gave Steve his first training task. Every day at the same time, Steve had to take the puppy to a coffee shop, and practice Sudoku while observing the people around him. During the rest of the day, Arthur trained Steve with different weapons: handguns, rifles, submachine guns, and sniper rifles. Steve had to master them all. Besides combat skills, theoretical knowledge was also important. Arthur gave Steve a manual. It contained different methods of creating accidental deaths. He told Steve to memorize everything. After the basic training was completed, Arthur started teaching Steve through a real mission. The target was an arms dealer. Arthur first gained the target's trust. While the man was counting money, Arthur quickly used a belt, and strangled him. After the man died, Arthur moved the body to the bed, and created the scene of an accident. Steve watched the entire process. Soon after, Arthur gave Steve his first real assignment. The target was the man Steve saw every day at the coffee shop. The man was actually another professional assassin. He was strong, careful, and extremely alert. An ordinary person could never get close to him. But he had 2 weaknesses. He liked dogs, and he liked younger men. Steve matched his preferences perfectly. Seeing the opportunity, Arthur gave Steve a bottle of poison. He told him to use it when the time was right, because fighting the target directly was too dangerous. But Steve ignored the plan. He did not use the poison. Instead, he followed the assassin back home. When the assassin relaxed his guard, Steve copied Arthur's method, and tried to kill him with a belt. But Steve overestimated himself. The assassin easily threw him away. The difference in strength was too big. Steve had no chance to fight back. At the critical moment, Steve noticed a screwdriver on the table. He finally killed the target. But he was badly injured too. A few days later, Arthur received a new assignment. The target was a cult leader. Arthur and Steve studied the information, and decided to use adrenaline for the assassination. A small injection into the heart would kill the target quickly, and make it look like a natural death. So they arrived at the hotel before the target. Using climbing equipment, they installed several cameras inside the presidential suite. Everything happening in the room was now under their control. Soon, they found the perfect opportunity. The two entered the space inside the walls through the ventilation system, and prepared to attack. But before they acted, they discovered something unexpected. The cult leader was a drug user. The drugs in his body would cancel their plan. Their original method was useless, but time was running out, so they changed their strategy. While the guards were away, they opened the hidden entrance, and entered the room. Arthur controlled the cult leader, while Steve placed the camera equipment inside his mouth. The cult leader quickly died from suffocation. After finishing the mission, they immediately returned through the same route. The guards found their leader dead. They thought it was caused by the drugs. But then, Steve accidentally knocked over a wrench. A small screw rolled out through the pipe. The guards immediately noticed something was wrong. They sent people to check the wall. The next second, a gunfight exploded, but their operation was completely exposed. For safety, they decided to leave separately. Arthur arrived at the airport, and prepared to leave, but he suddenly saw someone, who should have been dead. It was Burke. Arthur immediately realized someone had used him. He quietly followed Burke, and got onto the shuttle bus behind him. Burke finally revealed the truth. Dean had paid him a huge amount of money, to kill the other assassins, then pretend to be dead, and disappear. This way, Dean could blame everything on Harry, because Harry had been investigating the failed mission. Dean wanted Harry removed. Arthur finally understood. He had been used by Dean the entire time. Arthur calmly walked away. His next target was Dean. When Arthur returned to the dock, he noticed the person who usually guarded the place was gone. At that moment, the assassin sent by Dean arrived, but Arthur had already disappeared. While they searched the shore, Arthur suddenly came out of the water. He stabbed one assassin's knee with a harpoon, then took his gun, and quickly eliminated the other two. After that, he picked up one of their phones, and called Dean. Dean revealed that another team of assassins was already on the way. Arthur immediately called Steve, and found out he had already been captured. Arthur told Steve there was a loaded gun hidden under the sofa cushion. Steve quickly found the weapon, and took down all the attackers. The two finally met again. Arthur told Steve to move all the equipment from the warehouse onto the speedboat. While organizing the gear, Steve accidentally found his father's missing gun. A thought immediately connected everything together. On the way to find Dean, Steve asked Arthur several questions. Arthur's answers confirmed Steve's suspicion. Steve now knew the truth. Arthur was the one who killed his father. But Steve did not act immediately. They still had one goal: finding Dean. The two first broke into the home of Dean's bodyguard. They shot him in the knee. But the bodyguard refused to reveal Dean's location. The bodyguard believed his daughter was in danger, and finally gave them Dean's location. 1 hour later, Arthur called Dean's secret residence. Dean threatened to put a huge reward on Arthur's head, but Arthur told him his location had already been exposed. Dean immediately realized something was wrong. Arthur's call was actually coming from inside the building. Dean ordered all his guards to take him away immediately. But that was exactly what Arthur wanted. Arthur had only hacked into the building's phone system. Arthur installed cameras in the parking area. When Dean's convoy left the building, Arthur drove a stolen BMW, and crashed into the truck at the back of the convoy. The truck flipped over, blocking their escape route. Arthur got out, and eliminated the guards protecting the rear. Then he jumped into a prepared construction vehicle, and chased after Dean's car. At the same time, Steve stole a bus, and used it to block the convoy. Dean's armored car tried to turn around and escape, but Arthur arrived with a forklift. He pierced through the vehicle, then lifted and flipped the armored car over. Arthur and Steve walked toward Dean. They did not say anything. They simply finished the mission. On the way back, Arthur noticed Harry's gun on Steve. He immediately knew Steve had learned the truth. While they stopped for gas, Arthur quietly apologized to Steve. Steve said nothing happened, but the next moment, Steve grabbed the fuel nozzle, and poured gasoline over the truck. Then he pretended to go to the bathroom. As soon as he reached the corner, he pulled out his father's gun, and fired at the gasoline-covered truck. The truck exploded instantly. A few hours later, Steve returned to Arthur's house. He took Arthur's sports car, the one Arthur never allowed him to touch. But right after leaving the garage, Steve found a note on the passenger seat. It said, "If you are reading this, you are probably already dead." Steve smiled and ignored it. But the next second, Arthur's car exploded into a huge fireball. The entire house was covered in flames. Later, the police checked the gas station security footage, and discovered something surprising. Right before the explosion, a figure had jumped out of the truck. It turned out, Arthur had already expected Steve to come after him. He had prepared another vehicle in advance and escaped. Arthur drove away, starting a new life.